you hear me? All right, so we're just about to get started. So to start us off, we're gonna do a call and response because we need something to kind of signal like our transitions and get attention, all that stuff. So there's a phrase that has been used traditionally in movements throughout. So it goes,
ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. And when you was, oh, y'all already know it. Y'all heard it. It's because the students were walking out and y'all heard it, wasn't it? Yep.
So now we would all say in rhythm, ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what? All right. So now to get us started, I just want to give a special thanks to Las Azteca Guatonal because special shout out to them for opening up our day and giving us their prayers, their positive energy, their essence, their welcoming. How do you guys feel today? Like, let me hear your energy. Like, so first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody into this beautiful space for the Sanctuary District Conference. Okay, hopefully this starts to be an annual thing now with everything going on. Before we move on, I want to introduce myself. My name is David Contreras. I am a junior now at Fremont High School. Go Tigers. And for me, I'm here today because as an undocumented youth and as someone that comes from a family that immigrated to this country, like, this directly impacts me. And it's a topic that has become overwhelming because for me, like, when we go to school, our students, my peers, we want to feel safe. The school should be an environment where we can go to and be like, they got my back,
Hello everybody, my name is Gemma Quetzal. I am a junior at Life Academy. Town Youth Rising walkouts, and I'm also part of the Chicana Moratorium Coalition, and I'm also the student director of All City Council Student Union and the School Board of Education. And the reason that I'm very passionate about this is because when the government, the system are oppressing my people, they are criminalizing my parents, they're criminalizing my peers, they're criminalizing the people in the Oakland community, they're criminalizing the students in your classrooms. Right. So that's why it's important to me, because it's important for us to stand up and defend our people, because our liberation is tied with theirs. So it's a matter of time that we have the solidarity, and this conference is one of the steps we are going to be taking. So now I want to see who is in the room right now. So if I call out your roll, I want you to get up and make some noise. So teachers, are you in here? What about our principals? Are we in here? Where are our principals at? Now I know this is an educators conference, but we already know. Where are the students at?
Special thank you to everyone that made this happen today. The central office team. All the volunteers that are giving their precious time to us today. funders who made it possible to even create this conference today. So, special shout out to the Walter and Elise Haas Foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, the Oakland Public Education Fund, and the Oakland Museum of California for giving us this education.
So now I would like to bring up Anika, the representative for the Oakland Museum, who would like to welcome all of you.
Well, I don't know how I can come behind all of that right there. I mean, can we give it up for these young people? I am super inspired right in this moment, and I had prepared a couple of words to say. I don't even know if I'm going to say all of that, because I don't know that it needs to be said, because it was already said. Just that I'm really proud to be the Director of Engagement here at the Oakland Museum. That includes, thank you. Thank you. It's a new opportunity. I'm almost 90 days into it, so this is really an exciting moment to kick off my first year here at the Oakland Museum. I'm also the founder of Betty Ono, which is an art space. And today's conversation and the work that you all do, being on the front lines every day, taking care of our kids, my kid at Oakland Tech, and each other, and my friends being educators and also having students in OUSD is something that's very close to my heart. So I want to thank you for all of your work and all of the ways you hold space for our youth and for our community. And I want to also make sure that you know you're invited. In a few weeks, we're going to kick off the 23rd Annual Days of the Dead exhibition and festival here. Please clap it up. I want you to know that started as a community engaged, center directed experience. And the museum became the host space for it, but it was all driven by people just like you to get it going. And so we're really proud that we have 23 years of that tradition happening. We want to make sure you keep that date, October 22nd, to come and bring your friends and family and yourselves. But also, on October 19th, there's a very special educator-specific experience that we're offering to you, which is free. You get free admission to the museum. We're going to talk to you about the Days of the Dead experience. You're going to get a tour of the exhibition. We want to make sure you go to the MCA website and register for that. October 19th is especially for you, educators, the educator community, and your families. And just want to say thank you. I'm super inspired. Early in the morning, the museum as well is to be providing a safe and inclusive environment for our entire community and to continue to build deep relationships together. All right, thank you. And welcome. Did you all hear that you have free admission today and the 19th? But the 19th is very special because we're going to do a tour for you. So yes, free admission today as well. Thank you.
So now I want to introduce someone that also went out of the way to be here. It's one of our board directors, Ms. Shanti Gonzalez.
Good morning, everybody. I have actually never been prouder to be associated with OUSD than I am this morning. I especially want to acknowledge Nicole Knight and her team. When we passed this resolution, when the board passed this resolution, they moved with a speed that's totally appropriate for the times that we live in, and very little resources. And I'm just so impressed with what you guys have been able to build since November, I think, when we passed that resolution. So we did this because our kids and our families need to feel safe. Some kids need sanctuary from ICE. Some kids need sanctuary from child abuse or substance abuse. In my case, like, my parents just hated each other, and like, school was a place where I felt sanctuary, right, from all that. And so that's my hope for every Oakland student, that when they come into our schools, they feel that sanctuary feeling. So in OUSD, we say every student thrives, and that's why Rosie, Director Torres, and I introduced this resolution. We had a lot of help from parents, Parents United, from Black Organizing Project, from PLAN, and probably 10 other organizations, including Centro Legal. And I'm just really pleased that we've sent a really clear message to our families, to our students, to other elected representatives. You know, I'm still as scared as everyone else is in this room about what else will be coming from Washington. But I'm also heartened when I remember that this is the home of the Black Panthers and free breakfast. This is the home of ethnic studies over as Oaklanders that we know how to take bold and risky action on behalf of our students and our families, and I know that we are capable of doing that again. So, I know that we're up for the challenges that are ahead as a community. I could not be prouder to be part of this community of educators, and really grateful and appreciative for all the work that our teachers, our families, our students are doing to make our district, to make the Sanctuary District real. So I think now you guys are going to get to see some of our brilliant students in action. There's a video about our Sanctuary District work, so I'm just going to turn this back over to you two. Thank you.
I came to America like a refugee from Morocco to here.
First, I was living in Guatemala, which is my neighbor country.
I'm from Malaysia. The way I come to the United States, it was by walking with my sister and my cousins.
Dadas las circunstancias del peligro que corríamos, mi familia decidió venirse para acá.
They think that we're bad, we're criminals, bring drugs and all that kind of stuff, like we're rapists, so I think we're not welcome.
Immigrants can't just like leave their home country because they hate their home country. No, they want great future. So sometimes I think it's not good to judge someone without knowing them.
Where's the proof that we're bad? Why do you want to send us back? And we're all the same. We're all humans. I think we all belong here. America's a country for all people, not just people who look alike.
I was afraid that people would try to like separate us from our families because I have family members that are immigrants, and so I was always worried that I would be separated from my family and my loved ones.
Hay mucha violencia y mis hijas son nacidas aquí y pues no quiero separarme de ellas.
I got scared because many of my family doesn't have papers. All immigrants came here to have a better future and to have a better education.
It was scary, like I have my green card, but they still catch people with green cards, so it's like kind of scary.
Ahora como está con las pandillas, siento que no duraría, pero ni un mes creo vivo.
I don't think it's fair. I would be sad because I would have to leave my parents. I would say that she should stay because she's the only person who keeps me safe. And she hasn't done nothing wrong.
My friends think it's really good that Oakland has become a sanctuary city. We have a lot of family members that are immigrants. They get worried, but then when they hear that Oakland has become a sanctuary city, they feel relieved and they feel happy to live here.
Yeah, if it's like not sanctuary school, I think I will be like more scared, and I would rather be at home because I will feel safer there. Since it's sanctuary, I feel like, oh, teachers will protect me if something is going to happen wrong.
It just makes me feel that the district cares about our education. Their reason to be there is to protect us, and they're finding a way. It just means that they care somehow.
The idea to deport people simply because they are different is preposterous. because we need diversity, and diversity is the only thing that drives innovation.
Whether you're undocumented or not, I feel like that shouldn't be the reason as to why you have to be moved out of where you've been, like where you've grown up. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, honestly. Like, I feel like if you show no threat, you pose no threat, and you mean no harm, there's no need for you to be antagonized or to be messed with. It's just unnecessary.
I just feel the importance of diversity is that you see different perspectives. When you see different perspectives, you're more open, you're more empathetic. So when you come into a new space, you're able to just cooperate and understand what's going on, and let's not be prejudiced or just commit some bigotry.
We're all the same. I think that's the biggest message. You know, we're all the same, no matter how much money is in your bank account, no matter what type of clothes you wear, no matter what color your skin is, no matter what race you are. You're human, and we're all connected in some way.
No matter how we look or the color we are, where we're from, we are humans, and we all have the right to stay in the country.
Even though we look different, even though we act different, and we're from somewhere different, we're all the same in some ways.
Yo vine por un sueño y mis papás vinieron por un sueño, y creo que todos los que estamos aquí vinimos por un sueño.
I see that my future is going to be great, as I intend to be a doctor in future, so I know that I can make it.
I want to be someone who make my parents proud of me, and all they have given me, I will turn to them by making them proud and helping them in the future.
Thank you for making this video. This video means a lot to students, and it just shows solidarity and how we feel about this. So up next, I would like to call Miss Kyla, our superintendent, to speak some words on this.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Great. I love the way we started off this morning. Myself, in college, I was a part of a West African drum and dance troupe. I played the drums, so that was taking me back to earlier. And I love the fact that we started off in a circle, because this is a time when we need to come together as a community and really link all of our energy together. And to me, I see this event not as an event, but this is civil rights movement. And for all of you all who are here, we know in our country, most of our biggest activism comes from students, right? So to me, this isn't about just an event. Yes, it's about celebration, but this is serious. Our administration is slowly, and I'm not trying to get too political, but I am. Our administration is slowly taking back all kinds of privileges that people that look like me, people that look like in all parts of this room, worked so hard to put in place. Whether we're talking about voting, whether we're talking about making sure, regardless of how you came into this country, that you have the right to be here, arts, public schools. So this to me is learning, right? Learning isn't just about being in a classroom from 8 to 3. This is an opportunity for us all to be educated, to wake up and to think about what can we individually do to fight against the mindset that we have. And so for me, the energy of this is, in education, we create and mold minds. That is our job at the end of the day, right? So that 20 years from now, these ideas that are swirling about, that are just ridiculous, that we're able to eradicate them, we're able to eliminate, because our kids see things differently. So I just wanted to kind of leave you with that it's an event, we should celebrate each other being here, but also to take away that we're in a serious moment. And 20 years from now, we want people to look back and see, what did we do to fight against what's going on now? That's what we want. And we want to encourage the students. We want to give them the tools. Let's study other times and figure out what can we do strategically. And they're big things, they're little things. Our resolution is one way. for educators to do what people come into education to do, which is to make kids feel safe so that they can learn, right? So I hope everyone leans into these conversations so that we can continue this movement. So thank you all for being here, and get out of there what you can today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miss Kyla, right? I'm sorry, it's been a crazy last month. But thank you for your words. Up next, we have a spoken word expression by Alan Manzanares, Alva Martinez, and Isidro Velázquez of 67 Sueños. I'm sorry, I thought I said your name wrong.
Hello everyone, how we doing today? Good morning, how we doing? A little thing about ourselves, I'd like to introduce everyone right now. My name is Erickson. Alan can't be with us, unfortunately, but...
My name is Alva.
My name is Isidro. Woo! And these are some of my former students from 67 Sueños. I'm a former mentor, I'm sorry, but I always rock out with them. And the reason why I did 6-7 for a long time, I did around 4 years or 5, around there. But 67 Sueños is an organization that helps undocumented youth and empowering them, utilizing political engagement and awareness and also activism. And a lot of that is essential in order for us to learn and understand the system that is steady trying to oppress us, right? And at the same time, we're building together. We're building how to respect, destroy these constant ways, Western ways that we're slowly breaking down, such as machismo. Our people used to never be like this, right? And we're just learning together and developing new ways of how to build community and really understand each other. So today we're gonna perform for you a quick poem that is like our main anthem, right? And this is some of our things that we do in 67 Sueños. We do poetry, murals, everything. Just look us up, ask questions, you know what's up.
67 sueños.
67 dreams.
Estamos en la lucha.
Switching up the scene.
Hella undocumented.
Hella clean.
Migrant youth warriors.
With a little lean.
Another victim, another body. Persona humana. Mi gente sigue siendo torturada, maltratada, and killed on the border. The hate that separates a mother from a daughter, migrant people from each other.
Ya basta, esta violencia no se enoja, anda matando cuando se le antoja. Rest in peace, Anastasio Rojas. Latest victim of the brutal birds. Refresquemos la memoria, que conozcan tu historia.
Anastasio was a dreamer, believer, achiever, trabajando cada día como cualquier muchacho, padre o madre. Tenemos resistencia en la sangre, caminamos la distancia.
El migrante no se cansa. A couple years later, he was raising 5 children with a beautiful woman que ahora vive sola por un crimen. Anastasio fue pisoteado, chingado, linchado. Este hombre ser humano fue abusado y maltratado y murió electrocutado.
Mientras que Anastasio lloraba, la gente indignada gritaba:
este hombre no hizo nada.
Anastasio no hizo nada.
El migrante no hizo nada.
67 sueños.
67 dreams.
Estamos en la lucha.
Switching up the scene.
Hella undocumented.
Hella clean.
Migrant youth warriors.
With a little lean.
El sol que alimentaba la tierra cada día le quitó su vida. Era niña. She was a farm worker, a daughter, a fiancé, a soon-to-be mother. She was an other. Cargaba nuestro futuro en su vientre y cosechaba nuestro presente en los campos crueles que torturan a nuestra gente. It was 107 degrees above decency, and she had morning sickness recently, labored 9 hours without rest or water. She was relieving the nightmare of crossing the border, telling herself, I do this for my daughter. One hand on her womb and the other picking and pulling and aborting and abducting the fruit of this land that was once home to our people. Solo le habían cantado 17 mañanitas. They called her muchachita, señorita. Le llamaban migrante. Le decían illegal. Le decían wetback y alien. But her name was María Isabel Vázquez Jiménez. María Isabel Vázquez Jiménez. María Isabel Vázquez Jiménez.
Say that a lot of the issues that are happening today are already impacting many people, and I would like to say, Vienna, our hearts are with you, and we will support you and defend you. So up next, who we have is Deputy Chief Chris Chapman, a part of the Equity Office, to make some words right now.
Hey, repeat after me. My strength.
My strength
is in our support.
Is in our support.
My strength
is
in our support.
Is in our support.
I want you to look to somebody on your left or your right and say, I support you.
I support you.
Repeat after me. All revolutions start with love.
Start with love.
All revolutions start with love.
Start with love.
I want you to look at somebody else and say, I love you.
Oh, I love you. Don't worry about it.
Right on. If you're listening, clap once. If you're listening, clap twice. If you're listening, clap 5 times. Listen, y'all, relationships are formed at the speed of trust. We have an extraordinary opportunity today to accelerate our relationship if we show up 110%. So what you put in today will be what you get out.
That's right.
So I need you, our children need you, our system needs you, our city needs you in service of love. So be present today. Operate with humility. Right?
That's right.
So I was given 3 minutes today, and in the spirit of keeping me in 3 minutes, and I just lost 1 minute, I wrote something. And so I'm going to read what I wrote in the spirit of staying on time. So greetings, y'all. First and foremost, it's an honor to be in front of you. I do not take kindly for the fact that now I'm asked many times to speak in places and spaces that really is a privilege. And so when I I speak truth to power, and so today I'm going to share my truth in the spirit of the power. But we got to get this right, because I'm amongst a sister that man has moved me. She don't know it, all love. But I can't wait to hear Sister Fabiana. I tell you, the other thing I've realized, the truth is told through the arts. And if you are not infusing art into your lesson, into your home, into your life, into your hood, then you're really missing an opportunity to stand in truth and understand the vibration of which our elders come from, our culture is grounded in. So just much love in advance for Sister Fabiana, but not just being present here today, but for at least 3 decades, guiding us through her art and her culture. So can we give some love for Fabiana? I was telling my wife I got a secret crush on her, so it's a good crush, though. It's a good crush. All right, y'all. So here we go. The way that you fight racism is through solidarity. Now more than ever, we must come together to denounce President 45's plan to repeal the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program. As educators and allies, we have dedicated our careers and life to creating safe, respectful and loving spaces where children and families are valued for who they are and supported to learn, grow, and bring their talents into society. The repeal of DACA and the deportation of the children and young adults it protects is cruel and counterproductive. It flies in the face of a country that is a nation of immigrants and where these dreamers are working towards a better life each and every day. Please repeat after me. I am because we are.
I am because we are.
We are because I am.
We are because I am.
May the circle be unbroken.
May the circle be unbroken.
All right. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, we must all learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will all perish together as fools.
Yep.
We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be.
Huh.
This is the way God's universe is made. This is the way it is structured. We are in a moment of this work where we have to maximize the moment. Remember, we have two hands. One hand to build and one hand to fight. Hope is never sprinkled down. It has always sprung up. Community isn't always synonymous with warmth and harmony. Politeness is often a veneer for understanding, when in reality it masks uncovered territory. The unspeakable pit that we turn from because we know the pain and anger that can dwell there. It is important to remind ourselves that real community is forged out of struggle. This is the crucible from which our real community grows. Let us all continue to work together to create a culture of care. Let us work with our teachers to better support our students. Let us create a safe and supportive classroom. Let us make manifest our equity policy. Let us ensure that we all work together to ensure all of our students feel loved, listened to, and engaged, and able to be exactly who they aspire to be. Again, thank you to all of you, and in particular to the individuals that had the audacity to have a vision in service of our community and pulling this beautiful event together. Thank you all. Have a great day, the OUSD way. I appreciate you, and I love you.
All right, now we have Jehan Hakim, a national security and civil rights advocate.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am way too emotionally charged to do this freestyle, so I wrote some stuff down. I send peace and blessings to all of you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jehan Hakim, and I work with a large group of undocumented and MEMSA folks. So during the presidential election campaign, Mr. Trump promised a total and complete shutdown. A total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. In the same speech, he conflated 1.7 billion Muslims. 1.7 billion Muslims, or more than 20% of the Earth's population, with terrorism. Number 45's rhetoric punishes the innocent, lumps millions of ordinary people with a tiny number of criminals. Tens of thousands of foreign-trained physicians providing care in the poorest American countries have been banned from essential work. My family is from Yemen, one of the 6 banned countries. This ban has had a chilling effect on my community. People are afraid. We feel dehumanized. The Asian Law Caucus, where I work, in addition to many other civil rights organizations, were at SFO on the ground right after the first Muslim ban was signed. Folks from impacted communities were detained for hours. Others were deported right straight from the airport. Since number 45, according to a report by CARE, there has been a spike in anti-Muslim sentiment by 91% in comparison to last year during the same time period. This includes harassments, hate crimes, FBI visits. I have family that's been visited by the FBI myself. Intimidation and harassment at the border by CBP. Some of the trigger factors include ethnicity, right here, visible identity, my hijab, mosques, and political opinions. Those most impacted, emotionally and academically, are the youth. I have 3 teenagers myself. I know how it feels. We have heard reports of bullying by fellow classmates and teachers and staff. Sometimes it's direct and other times it's implied. I'll give you an example of a phone call I received from an Oakland mother who's also Muslim. She said that her teenage daughter was in history class, and there was a segment on world religions, and when they got to Islam 101, the teacher put on a video documentary about ISIS.
Say what?
So the girl herself, she's visibly Muslim, she wears the hijab, and she was confused because she herself knows nothing about ISIS anyways. Not to mention the backlash that she received by her fellow peers, unfortunately, because the person in charge, the teacher, put such a video on, you know. So the case right now is currently open, so I can't go into further details, but highlighting a historical parallel is when we think of a Muslim ban or a Muslim registry is not possible. If we go back in time, the Japanese Americans were, you know, impacted in the same way. And first it began as something that was hysteria, war hysteria. And then they were othered. And then all under the name of national security, because some people are deemed as a threat. So they were registered and then they were interned. So when we think, oh, nah, that's not gonna happen, it has happened. Why can't it happen again? Today I stand in support of those who left everything behind for a just and dignified life. I stand in support of family unity. I stand in support of the undocumented, workers' rights locally and globally, immigrant rights and religious freedoms. I stand against ICE raids, deportations, wage theft, profiling, surveillance, Islamophobia, sexism, immigrant bashing, and all these policies that we've been hearing from that big White House. I'll close with a real way to protect our youth and communities. And I know we don't want to get political, but for the past months, my organization, in addition to tons of civil rights organizations, have been trying to protect California residents in a real way, in a way that will make California a sanctuary state. SB 45. I'm sorry, SB 54. Don't quote me on that one. SB 54 will make California a real sanctuary state. If you guys can repeat with me, no ban, no wall, ever.
No ban, no wall, ever.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would like to welcome another co-author of the District Sanctuary Resolution, School Board Director Rosie Torres.
How's everyone doing? Good. So I get the pleasure of introducing the artist, your keynote, and the talk. She's here, and this is one example of her art. And so I hope if you haven't seen what she does, you can look her up later today or when you go home, and you can see more expressions of her talent. And before I introduce her to come up, I wanted to say once again, thank you to Nicole. When Director Shanti Gonzalez and I met to talk about getting on the agenda a policy for renewing the sanctuary district status, we got, like she said, we got input from many people, but then we passed the policy. And I want to thank my board member in the room, Jody London, District 1. We had a unanimous vote of 7-0 for the sanctuary policy. I'm vice president of the Latino School Board of California, and I have board members in other parts of the state that get death threats. So they didn't pass a sanctuary district policy. They literally get death threats. And the reason I bring that up is because we're in Oakland, we're in the town. This is a very special place, and I want to kind of take a deep breath on the thought that we get to do this, we get to heal, we get to come together and strengthen especially our teachers and everyone who touches children so that you can do the amazing work in this difficult time. So I definitely wanted to say thank you to Nicole because we just made a policy. We didn't say this, and this is what's going to happen next. She, on her own volition, created the task force that met repeatedly the last school year. And I said to her, how did you come up with this? And she basically said, we need to do more. We need to do more. And I was just completely overwhelmed with emotion because she has children, she has a family, she has a very busy job, but then she went the extra step, and that is Oakland. Everyone goes the extra step. So thank you. The other thing I want to say is that although these are very turbulent times politically, I also think that this is not a coincidence. I believe in karma as a Buddhist, 34 years. I believe we're all here, whether people are not here, you can tell them about this, but we're here purposely at this time, and this is something that has repeated itself for generations, as the young people said. And so I think it's really important to own that, like the danza. This is looking back at our ancestors. My great-grandparents came here from Mexico to leave poverty, and I'm 5th generation. So the fact of the matter is that because this is purposeful, because this is going to be the epicenter of change, especially in California, I feel we have to own that. We have to really take care of ourselves. It's a big job. We have to rest. We have to eat well. We have to exercise. I know I don't have time for that, but nonetheless, I definitely feel that you really want to think about how sacred it is. And so we also have the presence of a wonderful, amazing keynote speaker. Fabiana is someone who has a description on your beautiful agenda. So rather than read the description, I want you to have some time later to read the description because it is quite powerful what all she does. But what I also want to end with before I bring her up is I'm excited at what she will continue to do, what we haven't even seen, art she hasn't even made, because it's a lifelong process. She has so much love, she has so much to give, and that makes me think of you again, teachers and people working with our young people, which is that you are bringing out the innate potential of our children, and I really appreciate every single one of you. I don't know all of you. I'm a District 5 director, so I don't get to all the schools, but I definitely wanted to say thank you, because as you've seen our youth, our student board member, and David from Fremont, my school, these are the future leaders of this country. It will not be Trump. It will be somebody like them in the White House. So it's exciting. It's exciting, and I don't choose to see the times we're living that are so turbulent. I don't choose to see them as an obstacle. I choose to see it as shedding light on the darkness that's been there for a long time. So let's look at it in a positive way, that we're here uniting with people we might not normally spend Saturday morning with to make change once and for all, because we're tired of waiting for immigration reform. So I'm going to bring up Fabiana, and she's going to tell you more about herself.
I'm really excited to be here. Let me just adjust this. I'm 5 feet tall, so this is always a thing. Okay, let's see. How's that? How's that? You guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, first I wanted to share a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in Oakland. I actually, I went to Oakland schools. I went to Centro Infantil de la Raza and Lazier, Skyline, and for me, really, the role of teachers and the role of caring adults in my life is why I was able to be an artist, because I was able to grow up in the Fruitvale, where I took advantage of my health care at La Clinica, and I got free art classes at the Spanish-speaking Unity Council. And that really opened my eyes. I mean, to be able to grow up in a community where I saw murals that reflected people who looked like me was very significant, because on the summers when I would go to CCA for art camp, and we would have to do, still lives of leaves and really look at white artists, and I thought to myself, well, why do we lift up white artists? And I realized the power of culture at a very young age. I realized that the people who create culture really create the narratives that we reflect back to ourselves, and these narratives not only teach us they teach us a lot about gender, they teach us a lot about our belonging in the world, how we care for the planet.
So I think that creating narratives and creating art is one of the most powerful things, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is the role of arts and culture in shaping a more equitable future, and really in shaping the kind of world we want. So I'll start with a little bit of history. These are my parents. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My father was Afro-Peruvian, my mom Peruvian, and they came here in the 60s. And one thing I want to say is we are in for a long game of change. Change is not something that happens in 5 or 10 years. We are talking 30, 50-year cycles. So I wanted to bring us back to 1986. 1986 was the last time that we had any kind of national immigration reform, and that was under a very right-wing, insane, homophobic, anti-arts, pro-invasion president. So, you know, when people say, well, you know, why can't people just get to the back of the line? You have to remind them it's been over 30 years since we've had any kind of major reform in this country. And during that time, you know, that was 1986, something significant happened in 1994. Does anyone remember what it was? Prop 187, and what else at the national level? There's a little clue right here. NAFTA was signed, and NAFTA, which was a narrative that said, oh, there is now no borders between Mexico, the US, and Canada, and we're going to allow capital to flow. Well, guess what? When capital flows, people move with it. And so one thing we have to understand is that the notion of a world without borders is now over 20 years old. But that notion hasn't expanded to include people. It's expanded to include wealth, and we are now entering the largest wealth inequality at a global level we are in now. So at the same time in 94, Proposition 187 happened. So this is no surprise that while there was a national push to sort of embrace free trade, there was always there was also a push on criminalizing migrants. It began 20 years ago, y'all. It's important to understand the way that culture works. Some of the key terms that we began to see unveiled here in California, you know that we are the home of the anti-immigrant movement. It's here. It was under Pete Wilson, the white nativists really understood the power of the narrative, and they really began to popularize and normalize a term called illegal. And when they began to use that, and they began to circulate stories. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember the commercials in '94, which would show migrants, you know, running, because back then we didn't have a border. We didn't have a militarized border. We had a fence, you know, and so they would show migrants running across the fence or migrants in the trunks, and they would say things like rapists, murderers, invaders, right? Really creating a narrative of fear. And that gradually began to make its way through policy, but we did it here first in California. And I think that's why we actually learned. That's why California is like, you know, we were the prison state. Remember, we were the #1 prison state. We were locking people up. We were the first one to pass homophobic legislation, and we learned really fast. So thankfully California is now on the right path, but we did it all first. We wrote the script for the rest of the country. So, 94, when I was a teenager, and I actually got to work with folks like Sergio and Karina and Raquel, and we would walk out our classes, we would lead protests, and we were also back then saying schools, not jails, which now is normalized. It took over a decade to normalize those kind of beliefs. But when we were out there, it struck me that people voted according to what they believed. That when you hear narratives, right, of be afraid of these people of color, because it wasn't just Prop 187, it was also Prop 21, it was the end of affirmative action, right? And when people hear narratives around be afraid of these people, and they continuously see symbols that show them that they have to be afraid of people of color, that sinks into your mind, and it's called unconscious bias. People vote with their unconscious bias. So what we have to understand is that you can give people a 10-point program, you can give them a very reasonable essay on why they should be in support of immigrants, but the reality is that people react to emotions. People don't necessarily believe what's rational. They react to how their body feels and how very highly emotional stories. So I realized that we have to be the one telling those stories, right? How could it be that, after 94, 96, something very significant happened, it was one of the first and last times we had a major film with a Latina character, which was Selena. Since then, Latinos, 50 million in this country, Can you name me in the last 10 years a film that has a major Latina protagonist? An immigrant narrative? No. And this is exactly the problem, is that immigrant narratives about the diaspora are just non-exist. They don't exist. What exists is narratives about, you've seen the increase of, DC comic films with the white hero, right? That's all paid for by military. So we need to understand that we have to begin to create culture that reflects our values and that is also fun, compelling, entertaining. It's not just about, I think often we just think about politics as something hard and we dismiss arts and culture because it's seen as something soft. Well, here is the wheel of social change. Without culture, we will not win. If you look at marriage equity, before you had the victory at the Supreme Court, you had in 1997 Ellen, you had Will and Grace, you then began to have shows like The L Word, you had people in sports coming out, you had Rachel Maddow. Of course, it was a very white narrative. But I'm saying this is because by the time 2014 came around, most of the country had already made up their mind. They were in support of gay marriage. If any of you were around to watch Ellen, we're in a very different world than we were in Ellen. Ellen could hardly even kiss her partner on TV. Okay, and so what it takes is that we need to infuse with our ideas and our values all of pop culture, and it starts with the arts. I'll give you another example, gun reform. Most of this country was in favor of gun reform after the Sandy Hook shootings, right? Now, did we have economic power to make change? No, we didn't, because the gun industry is too powerful. There was cultural will, but there wasn't political will. And so unless these three line up, we are not going to be able to see the kind of victories that we need. And what this says is that one of the most powerful ones is culture. And so why? Well, first, let's take a moment to reflect on how our current when we think of social justice or we think of activism, often what we think about is marching in the front lines, we think of protests or of really standing up and fighting and resisting, right? This is the language that we use. However, I think that we need to be more expansive, and often when we are fighting back, when you're fighting something, you are reacting to it, right? There is a dominant force, and you are often reacting to that dominant narrative. So in other words, if we are always on the defense, if we are saying, no, please, don't take away our DACA or, stop deportations, at what point are we also spending time on creating the narratives for the world we want to see? In other words, in the space of ideas is where we get to tell the stories of the world we wish to have. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does a world without borders really look like? Are we spending the time really putting out our vision out there? Because it's really all about values. The one thing about 45 is that I think he is a really good performance artist. I mean, he's very compelling. He's offering people a really good story, which is basically, come on, America, we're going to do this. We're going to take our country back. It's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. Even the metaphor he's using of the wall, it's a metaphor. It's not real. It's all a fabrication of an idea. And we can spend a lot of time reacting to that idea, or we can create our own ideas that compel people equally. And what that means is that we need to tell good stories. And stories about the world we wish to have. And that includes stories where we're eliminating gender, we are thinking about race in a whole nother context, and we're also thinking about a world without borders. Unless we start really working in the space of ideas, we're going to continue to just be reactive. The right wing, the conservatives, definitely knows that they work in the space of ideas. I mean, think about it. Everything from the drug war, the war on welfare, they have established and dominated the terms of the debate. Because they keep it about values. They say family values. Well, what happens to family values when you're talking about mass incarceration? That sure doesn't include, keeping families together. That's a family value, right? So we have to be able to say, hey, you know what? Family values means keeping families together. It means stop ripping families apart through deportation and mass incarceration. But it also means that you in your classrooms, that we have to give young people the space to really think big. This is what innovation is about. This is what it means. We need to give people the space to really think about the world they want to have and not just limit ourselves by what's politically feasible. Because if we do that, then we will continue to just stay in a reactive kind of wheel and not begin to really chart out our path. Having power means that we get to be in control of the narrative and we write the narrative on our own terms. So I'm going to talk a bit about the butterfly and its symbol. So first, the monarch butterfly is a species that actually crosses from Mexico through the US and Canada. And what's interesting is that it doesn't do it in one generation. It does it in multiple generations. In other words, in the monarch butterfly, in its DNA, it has a migratory path. Okay? We are a part of nature. Human beings have been migrating since the beginning of time. Okay? We have always moved. We belong to the earth, and like many of the earth's creatures, we move and we migrate. And throughout history, because of how racial capitalism has worked, we reward and we celebrate when white people move. But we criminalize and we create these narratives of non-belonging when people of color move, and it's a global phenomenon. You know, a lot of people in Europe that are migrating from Africa, they are returning to the countries that colonized them, right? And so we have to understand also that migration is closely tied to what's happening with the environment. Because what happened is through colonialism, we destroyed and we took the resources of all of these countries and we destroyed their ability to sustain for themselves, and we really destroyed their natural habitat. So just like butterflies migrate, humans need to migrate. And we need to migrate in a way where we understand that this is part of our DNA. As humans, we have to survive. All species have to survive, and they will do what they need to do. That's why the monarch butterfly, I used it as a metaphor for this butterfly. And there's also two faces, because people always migrate because of love, whether it's love for themselves because they want to find a new path, or love for someone else. And so this symbol is also about stating that migration is it's a natural act, it is part of who we are as human beings, and that borders are obsolete, borders are man-made. In fact, borders need to go away. So, the other thing about symbols, you know, symbols are very important. The pink triangle was a critical symbol. You know that we did not have the symbol of Earth until 49 years ago, when somebody landed on the moon and they saw Earth. And that created a symbol that galvanized people around Earth Day. Earth Day is almost 50 years old. When we saw a picture of Earth, we realized this is our home. We have a very different perspective. Imagine, people for many years thought the world was flat. And then you get on the moon and you're like, wow, this is home. We only have one home. And similarly, the pink triangle was able to create safe places. And if you think symbols are not important, then think about the memorials that are coming down right now, the Confederacy memorials, and that those memorials were put up during the Jim Crow era, because symbols is what creates our understanding of our place. And so if we grow up in a place where we see these white men elevated, former slave owners on these huge pedestals, think about that, in our public space. What do the monuments of the future look like? What do the symbols of the future look like? And what kind of symbols do we need today to activate folks around our values? One of the things that I really enjoy about this butterfly and why I put it on the earth is because the monarch butterflies, they're threatened right now because of climate change. Because the same way that we violate the earth and we extract and we drill and we have no regard is the same way we treat human beings. It's the same way we treat women, and we have to understand that there is a parallel between the way we dominate the earth, the way we want to dominate people. That we need to understand we can live in more balance, right? And that includes that we move away from an extractive culture towards a regenerative culture. And that means that rather than extract, we think about regenerating. And that goes for people and it goes for the planet. But I created this also as a way because if you notice, my poster does not say stop deportations. It does not say no. It says yes. And I want to invite you to think about the yes in your life. And I want to invite you also to embrace the yes when you work with young people, because the yes is just as important as the no. And also, as human beings, y'all, unfortunately, racism means that we are often feeling like we're overwhelmed or we are under attack. But the reality is we have the right to feel all human emotions, and that includes joy, resilience, power, and we have to create spaces where our young people can feel all of those emotions. And that's why I create art that's positive, affirming, that's also about the world we want to see. And I also think that art is one of the places where we can create our own narrative on our own terms. It's actually about critical thinking. It's about being able to really articulate what is your human condition? How are you experiencing it, and how are you sharing it back outwards? And finally, I'll close off with a few pieces. This piece is a piece about ending mass incarceration, and the bars are fizzing out. And it tells us that beyond bars and borders, there's another world, there's another reality for us that we can strive towards. And also, I grew up, of course, in, and this is probably the same situation today, is when I was going to high school, everyone was eating, hot Cheetos and Coke and Gatorade during recess. Well, it's no surprise that also the #1 thing that kills black and brown people is food-related diseases. Okay, so it is all connected. The fact that we are facing inequality because of our immigration status is also why we face health inequality. It's why we live in places where we have higher asthma. It's all connected. It's all about it's ecology, the environment. And so when the fascinating thing about art is it allows us to have intersectional narratives. There's no issues. It's just about how we experience life, and that we have to defend. Just like we defend our home, we defend each other, we also have to defend our one mother, our one home, which is Earth. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a great day.